All right, welcome guys. We got an exciting episode today. Listen, you guys were struggling with the Enlightenment and it's deep into the pool stuff. No worries. Let's talk about it. Go all the way back to the beginning of class when we're studying Egypt, right? The Pharaoh is like a god on earth. And what was the number one god in Egypt? Ra, the sun god, right? Okay, so go a little bit further, you get into Greece. You've got Poseidon, he causes the storm, or you've got Zeus who causes lightning or whatnot. People are trying to describe the world around them, but they transition towards logic and science, and you start having Archimedes develop these principles, and Euclid and math and the Hippocrates, okay, Hippocratic Oath, medicine. And so we're advancing. Now go to the next step. This is enlightenment. We're going to use scientific principles and we're going to push ideas further with regards to gravity and whatnot. And we're going to start applying science to politics and government. And so that's what's happening here. Let me give you it's so oversimplified, I hate to say it, but it works 95% of the time. Let's talk about Thomas Hobbes and John Locke, okay? Just remember, Locke equals love, Hobbes equals hate. Now that is not necessarily true, but Hobbes says people need to be controlled by the government. You need a police, you need laws to restrain people. Whether you believe that or not is up to you, but you do need those laws in some way. So that's sort of what Hobbes argues is for the power of the state. Locke, on the other hand, is more concerned with the state taking your rights. He says you need life, liberty, and property. You've got the right to life, liberty, and property. Do you know what that sounds like? It sounds like the Declaration of Independence when Thomas Jefferson writes life, liberty, and happiness. Okay? So Jefferson is directly influenced from Locke. I'll give you another one. Voltaire says, I might not agree with what you say, but I will defend your right to say it. That's freedom of speech. That's the First Amendment. Does that make sense? So we've gone from sun god to Poseidon starting to slip into some math and some science to enlightenment. And then out of the enlightenment, you get our founding fathers. Okay, our founding fathers, they read these enlightenment thinkers, they read their theories on government, and then they implement them. Let me give you another example. Montesquieu is going to say government should be separated into different parts. Okay, if you look at the American government, what do we have? We have executive, legislature, judicial branch. I don't know why I always say it like that. I should say it the way it appears in the Constitution. Legislative, executive, judicial branch. Um, and so our founding fathers take the ideas of these Enlightenment thinkers and codify them into the Constitution and into the American government. Does that make sense? In 2 years, it's on your test. What is Montesquieu? How does he contribute to the American form of government? He says government needs to be separated. Okay, separation of powers, separation of government. Okay, what does Locke say? Who is Thomas Jefferson influenced by? John Locke. What does Locke say? Life, liberty, property. And then Jefferson changes that to life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. Does this make sense? Okay, so when I'm saying enlightenment, all you got to do is say people are starting to think about using science and logic and thinking about government and society. How can we use our brain? It's not necessarily that the king's the smartest guy. He just happens to be the son of the last king. Is that the smartest way to do things? Maybe not. How can we use our brains to create a better government and a better situation? Does that make sense? Okay, so that's enlightenment, just building on the thinking of others. No worries, it's tough. You're doing just fine. Let's get on to Newton, okay? Sir Isaac Newton is going to have different laws So if I say, who comes up with the laws of motion? You say 1, 2, 3, Sir Isaac Newton. Okay, these are common ones that you've heard. Gravity, he comes up with the law of gravity. An object at rest remains at rest until acted upon by a force. Okay, force equals mass times acceleration. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. Okay, he is starting, these are the basic ways that people understand the universe, the basic physics equations that they'll be the cornerstone, and they don't really change until Einstein comes along and redescribes them. Okay, so here's a fun song about Newton.
Things go up, things go down, while the earth spins round and round. Why don't we just float away? Is it because of gravity? The stars above, the ground below. Yet there are things we don't know. But there's these laws on how things move. What's Newton's law say?
An object at rest will remain at rest unless acted on by a force. An object at rest will remain at rest unless acted
What's
on
Newton's
by
law
a force.
say?
An object in motion will remain in motion, same speed, same direction. An object in motion will remain in motion, same
What's
speed,
Newton's
same
law
direction.
say?
An object at rest will remain at rest unless acted on by a force. An object at rest will remain at rest unless acted
What's
on
Newton's
by
law
a force.
say?
An object in motion will remain in motion, same speed, same direction. An object in motion will remain in motion, same
What's
speed,
Newton's
same
law
direction.
say?
On a bus, moving fast. When it stops, inertia hits. Remain unchanged is what that means. Which is why you don't stop still. Now you know, so be careful. The first law of motion. But if an object is applied a force, it will continue on that course, until you apply a different force.
What's Newton's law say?
Acceleration is produced when a force is applied to a mass. Acceleration is produced when force is
What's
applied
Newton's
to
law
a mass.
say?
Acceleration is produced when force is applied to a mass. Acceleration is produced when force is
What's
applied
Newton's
to
law
a mass.
say?
An object at rest will remain at rest unless acted on by a force. An object at rest will remain at rest unless acted
What's
on
Newton's
by a
law
force.
say?
An object in motion will remain in motion, same speed, same direction. An object in motion will remain in motion, same
What's
speed,
Newton's
same
law
direction.
say? The third of Newton's laws states for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. If you push a wall, it will push right back with equal force, but the force is opposite.
Okay, welcome back. Okay, Descartes writes about the scientific method. Now we're getting back into some history. Okay, in Spain, they have something called the Reconquista. They're trying to retake Spain back from the Moors. Okay, and the Moors are, do you know this? Do you remember who the Moors were? The Moors were the Muslims. Okay, and they're going to reconquer Spain. And after they do this, they need more land. They need to expand. Ferdinand and Isabella are going to do what? They're going to send out Columbus to try to find a way around the Silk Road. And Columbus, by the way, I don't know why it's in the textbooks and people think that like the earth was flat. Look, the ancient Greeks had proven that the world was a sphere. What they didn't know was how big the world was, how big that sphere was. So Columbus was out to say, hey, look, I can sail all the way around and get to China. Okay. We're skipping through a lot of this. I think this one's important enough. We're going to talk about this one. Spanish Armada, okay? Spain is conquering the New World, okay? Spain is the first one in the New World. They have set up shop. Why then do we speak English? What happens? Why is England able to grow across North America? And why aren't we Spanish? What happens? Okay? The sinking of the Spanish Armada changes the balance of power. Spain was number one. Then after their armada gets sunk and the variety of disasters after that, boom, it's open season. England, France are able to come colonize North America. Does that make sense? Okay, great.
What is the most important date in American history? July 4th, 1776, the date of American independence? Or April 12, 1861, the first day of the Civil War that ended slavery in America? Or maybe December 7th, 1941, the day the Japanese Empire bombed Pearl Harbor, bringing America into World War II? Or how about this one, July 28th, 1588? Yes, 1588, that's 30 years before Plymouth Rock and almost 20 years before Jamestown, John Smith, and Pocahontas. So why is it such an important date in American history? First, a little background. In 1588, the most powerful man in the world was the King of Spain, Philip II. Flush with gold and silver from the New World, he had no rival save one, Queen Elizabeth of England. England was a Protestant nation, and Spain was Catholic, as was most of Europe. In addition to considering her a heretic, Philip hated her for two additional reasons. First, she was financing a rebellion by the Dutch Protestants against Spain in the Spanish Netherlands, which Philip controlled. And second, because she had executed her rebellious cousin, Mary, Queen of Scots. Mary, like Philip, was a Catholic monarch. Philip felt that Mary, not Elizabeth, was the rightful heir to the English throne. Philip felt that with the execution of Mary, Queen of Scots, Elizabeth had gone too far. The time had come, he decided, to discipline her and her heretic nation. He came up with an audacious plan. He would invade England. To do this, he needed a large army and lots of ships. He needed an armada, 130 ships that would carry 30,000 men. Philip was very rich, but not that rich. To build such a fleet, he would have to borrow heavily. But this wasn't much of an obstacle. Once he had conquered England, he could use the English treasury to pay off any debts. The Pope, wishing to see England return to the Catholic fold, promised additional financing. So the ships were built, the soldiers recruited. Most importantly, Philip had chosen a competent man to lead them, the Marquis de Santa Cruz. Santa Cruz asked for more time to prepare his ships and men. But Philip was impatient, far too impatient as it turned out. In a massive stroke of misfortune, the first of many, Santa Cruz died just before the Armada was set to sail. Rather than take the time to seek a new suitable replacement, Philip pushed ahead and appointed Duke Medina Sidonia to take command. There was only one problem. Sidonia was an army general. He had no naval experience. In fact, he'd never been out to sea. You can't hide 130 ships and 30,000 men. The English knew the Spanish were coming, and they were ready for them. What they lacked in firepower, they made up in maneuverability, familiarity with the treacherous English Channel, and the most capable and creative sea commanders of the age, Lord High Admiral Howard, Sir John Hawkins, and Sir Francis Drake. They knew they couldn't win a shootout with the Spanish. So instead, they launched a preemptive attack on the Spanish fleet while it was still docked in the French port of Calais. Setting a number of their own ships on fire, they sailed them into the port. The Spanish cut their anchors to flee the flaming English ships. But in their panic, they only made matters worse. The Spanish ships rammed into each other, tangling riggings, slicing sails, and crushing hulls. The vessels that weren't damaged were sitting ducks for the English cannon. Seeing that England had blocked their escape back to Spain, the badly wounded Armada sailed north into the Atlantic, hoping to regroup. But then the weather turned, and Mother Nature finished what the English had started. When it was all over, only 76 of the 130 Spanish ships returned home, and half of the 30,000 men were now at the bottom of the ocean floor. Spain never challenged England again. Spain never challenged anyone again. It was finished as a great power. So why was the defeat of the Spanish Armada so important to American history? If the Armada had won, England would have become part of the Spanish Empire. There would have been no further English exploration of the North American coastline. In all likelihood, Spain, not England, would have colonized the eastern seaboard and expanded westward. Spain would have ruled America as it did South America. There would have been no 13 colonies, no 13 original United States. The America that we know would not exist. Without a United States of America, there would be no Declaration of Independence, no Constitution, no Bill of Rights. The whole concept of American democracy, an idea that profoundly changed human history, would be unknown.
Here are our last concepts. We're going to talk about economics. Mercantilism. You're lucky we're at the end of the year. I'd give you a big test on this, but you'll be all right. You can get this, okay? The mother country wants more exports and fewer imports. Okay, so let me back up. The goal of mercantilism is to acquire gold and silver. How do you get gold and silver? By exporting more than you import, okay? Here's the problem. And I would have had you in class break off into groups and start trading. Can you all have more exports than imports? That's not mathematically possible. Someone's got to import and someone's got to export. And if everybody's exporting but no one's importing, it won't work. So what they do is they start getting colonies. And this is where America is going to come into play. Okay? America is the British colony. So we're going to give them raw materials. We're going to give them the lumber and the fur. And then they're going to sell back to us the hats and the tables. And they're going to say, you're not allowed to make some of these finished products. Okay? Does that make sense? Okay. That's called mercantilism. Nobody uses mercantilism anymore. Okay. What are the two economic systems today? Capitalism or communism. There is no pure communism and there is no pure capitalism. Don't worry about that. But you need to know this. Okay? What does capitalism mean? Okay. There's a book called The Wealth of Nations. It's written by Adam Smith. He says gold and silver don't necessarily equal wealth. The butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, all trading with each other equals wealth. Trade equals wealth. He says the best way to encourage trade and the best way to have your market decide prices is to let it alone, let do. Laissez-faire economics means let alone. You can set the price, okay? In a free market economy, and you're selling donuts, you decide how much the donut costs. You decide how much to make. You want to make 50 donuts? You make 50 donuts. You want to make 100? You make 100. You want to charge $1, $2? It's up to you. If you do a good job, you'll make money. If you do a bad job, you go out of business. And that's how the economy is regulated, as opposed to a command economy where the government says donuts cost $1.50. You must produce 200. That's it. And you have no choice. Well, that might be enough, or that might be too many. Or that might be a good price, or it might not be. And that causes inefficiencies, okay? So in the effort to guarantee food for everybody at a reasonable price, you lose efficiency. And in the end, most communist command economies, they can't maintain that lack of efficiency and compete. And so they have to adapt some level of capitalism into their model, okay? Let's review real quick. 3 laws of motion. Who wrote the original 3 laws of motion? The rules of gravity. Sir Isaac Newton. Good. Who sets the price in a capitalist economy? Okay. The producer, the person, you do, individuals. Okay. What economic system do you live under right now? Capitalism. Perfect. Okay, great. One last one. Thomas Jefferson was inspired by whom? John Locke. Okay, if you remember that, great. That's a deep end question. Okay, do we feel better about the Enlightenment? Great. If you have any questions, let me know. You got a small quiz tomorrow. Lots of Jeopardy and review. We'll go over all the main concepts together. And I hope you guys have a nice weekend. I'll see you soon.